So now we have gathered here today for a purpose. Now you have been exposed to a wonderful discourse by our great master, Honorable Guru Thero. Now today you learnt about the God and the demon, right? So you learnt about the ego, and you learnt about the purest form which lies deep within yourself, the purest form of the mind, which is the Buddha, which is the God. These are all symbolic representations, okay? Otherwise, this is nothing to be related by a Buddhist monk. These are also always symbolic representation of the words that we use. Okay. And we talk about putting the teaching into practice. There's a word for that in Buddhist literature. When it comes to the practice, Lord Buddha talks about bhavita bahulikata in its original terms. It's called bhavana or meditation. So this is what we practice as meditation. Putting the teachings into practice is what we refer to as meditation. So are you all ready to do some meditation? What have you been doing all this time? Even unbeknown to you, you have meditated. You have been putting the teachings into practice. Because our teachers are so subtle, they force us, they make us to meditate. Therefore, unbeknown to ourselves, we see the truth. We see the light at the end of the tunnel. So that is how tactful our teachers are. I think you have experienced that. So let me guide you towards seeing the truth within your lives, within your life experiences. So let me have your attention on maybe few aspects where our Guru Thero highlighted today in his discourse. He told about the timeline, the past, present, and the future. Although there is just one past, one version of past, there are many versions of the future. You have a feeling that you can choose what path you will go in the future. And you feel that you have the liberty to create your own future. And it depends on your past experiences. So, depending on your past experiences, you always have a better version in everything that you come across. So you try your best to convert what you meet to the best version of what you have in your mind. So, therefore, you exert yourself. You exert relentlessly, day in and day out. And finally, you try your best to convert it to the better version. If not the best, at least to the closest of what you want to create out of it. And you need time. Actually, time is an illusion, and you have proven it to yourself now, but you need minds. Can you remember the process that our Guru Thero drew? So let me remind you. So this is the purest form of yourself, of your mind, with no ignorance and attachment. This is the Buddha, or this is the the God. But when this process happens, parallel to this, another process happens, which we refer to as the defilement process. So what is this process? This is the aggregation process or the minding process. Whatever the term that you use, it's more or less the same. It's the same idea. So once the mind is defiled with ignorance, the process of defilement starts. It starts with ignorance, then ignorance gives rise to attachment, then the combined effect of ignorance and attachment, what does it create? It creates expectations or wantings, desires. With wantings, vexation happens. Then, as you saw, the abhisankara process or the release of vexation happens. As a result, it creates the demon, which we refer to as ego. So, when this process happens, when it starts with ignorance, now the mind can't help, but this process will also happen. Therefore, at the end of the day, not only the God will come into being, but the God will be offered to the demon. For this to happen, this process must happen. This is not a standalone process. I think you already learned it. And these moments, so these are the moments that occurs in our mind, right? So this is a mental moment. So this moment will be consumed by this process. That means the purest form of the mind is being offered to the defilement process. That is can't you see something? It took you many eons for you to get this human life. What is understood by a human life? Did you get a human life all at once? Or did you get, what are you getting at each and every moment? You have your mind. So did you get all minds all at once? No. You're spending one mind at a time. Shall we save it? Shall we stop this process? Shall we save our human moments in a safe in your bank? Can you save it? No. Each and every moment you're spending them. Just imagine if this happened to your hard-earned money. What do you think? If you can't stop spending them each and every moment, if it is spent, what can you do? You're helpless. You can't stop it. So this is your hard-earned, not money, but hard-earned merit that you're spending and you can't stop it. And at the end of the day, if this process happens, this will be offered to the demon. And isn't it the biggest wastage? That is why our Guru Thero told that unbeknown to us, we don't know that this process happens. We don't know. We are not aware that it is nothing but the ego. We think it is ourself. It is us. That is the saddest part. That is the saddest part which we have to realize. Unless we realize this, we think that, oh, I'm so free. I'm myself. And it's my life. My car, my petrol, and my life concept. And you call it the freedom. The true freedom can only be achieved by eradication of all your desires. But desires cannot be, the wantings cannot be eradicated unless you eradicate the root of the mind, or this process, with ignorance and attachment. If ignorance and attachment is going to stay, or if it will be manifested in the minding process, now the God will be offered to the demon. Now, how can you stop this? Actually, what is ignorance? Because it is here where it starts. Ignorance. What is ignorance? Not knowing about what ignorance is. If you knew what ignorance was, will it happen at all? No. Just because you don't know what ignorance is the very reason why this process happens. So, let us make use of this time. So, I will give you a few minutes to ponder upon, to contemplate about the things that you consider as so valuable and so the best version, right? Because there's a common feature, or there are common qualities which can be observed in these best versions that you have in your mind. For example, if you want to buy a new dress, there will be a best version of that dress. Now I want you to think about the qualities of this best version. It could be a dress, if you're planning to buy a new dress, or if you want to, let's say, to apply makeup on your face, right? That's another example that our Guru Thero took today, right? I don't want you to be ashamed of this. And there's nothing wrong with applying makeup, right? I'm not talking about right or wrong. I want you to focus on what is special about this best version. And what is the essential quality of this best version. And you will start to realize that there is one special quality of the best version. It will not change. So, the best version of your face, do you think that it will change? What do you think? If you understand that it is going to change, will you ever start applying makeup on your face? If you understand, if you realize that it is an effect, the best version of the dress that you're going to buy, if it is a manifestation, if it is a point-to-point manifestation, would you even spend a penny on the dress that you're going to buy? Because it is not fixed. One quality of the best versions that you consider in all the experience that you have come across so far in your life is that those best versions are fixed. They are not manifestations. They are fixed. And you like to take it for granted. That is why the mind would accept any view. As Guru Thero said, can you remember that he told about accepting views? Can you remember that people like to accept that when they are praised, but when they are ridiculed or when they are criticized, do they like it? No. They just deny. They may listen to it with a smile worn on their face, right? But do they really acknowledge it? No. This ego always denies it. Why? Because it always wants to be the superior. If it understands that it is there is someone else, some superiority, even more than this ego, what does it try to do? Will it be satisfied? It will not be. Just imagine if it agrees that it is the superior most, then is it still satisfied? No, it will still go and look for confirmation. It will ask many others, do you agree that I am the superior? Do you agree? And when they get the confirmation, they agree. When they can't agree with that, what will happen? They will try their best to get the confirmation. Isn't it a curse? Can't you see that bearing this in your mind is the biggest curse? Why? It has consumed your valuable human minds. You can't be at rest. You always go and look for something. You always go and look for the perfect version. And the urge to search for it is irresistible. You can't stop it. However much you try to stop it, it's not you who try to do that. Can you understand? Is it you who try to be the best? Or the vexation that it is created here makes you do it? It is the vexation that has taken control of your life. You can't prevent this. When it comes to this stage, now it is too late. When it's not too late, here, this is the place where you can get rid of this. This is the wrong interpretation or wrong knowledge, wrong view. So try to reflect on the qualities of the best things that you hold on to. The chances are that you can see some fixedness, some uniqueness of the best version of you, which you hold on to. So let's take some few minutes. I will give you few minutes. So try to think about the best things that you hold on to. It could be your favorite food item, or it could be your favorite dress. It could be a party dress, or your best pair of shoes, or your most favored leisure time activity. Maybe your hobby, maybe something that you watch, maybe the social media that you use. There is always the best version. Maybe your appearance. So try to ponder upon whether they are actually fixed or whether that's a manifestation. Because reflection of the truth is to identify and to realize the theory of cause and effect. And you know that is the theory of everything. Isn't that the truth? That might not be the apparent truth, because that is why we believe in the things that are not effects of causes. What are the things that are not effects of causes? The fixed things that you perceive. Okay, this is a very subtle thing. So as you can see, this process, Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana, right? So if I were to revise this, you already know about this, right? This is an event. It could be an event of sight, sound, smell, taste, or touch. So when an event happens, it always comes into contact with the root of the mind. So with the contact, Vedana and Sanya occurs. The meanings are, it is detected as something got contacted. So the detection or registry, the registration happens. And identification. So detailing of what that got contacted. Identification happens. So first it is detected that something has got contacted, and then it is being identified. Both these, Vedana and Sanya, both of these, when they are combined together, we call this as Nama, or details. Details of what is contacted, what comes to contact, what comes into contact with the root of the mind. This is what comes into contact, and these are the details of it. Then Sankara. Sankara means combination, combining, the process of combining. Then what is combined? The details and the form. The form and the details, or the name and the form. You may have heard it that way. What is name? Name is the details. Why is it called as name? Because there is no form in it. Right? So this name, or the details and the form, will be combined. Can they be combined ever? No, they don't match with each other. Can you combine an apple with an orange? Okay, I have an apple here, just imagine, right? And I have another apple here. By combining them together, I can say that there are how many apples? There are 2 apples on my hand. Can I do the same with an apple and an orange? Can I say that there are 2 apple oranges? Right? They are not the same. Therefore, I can't combine them, because the type doesn't match. I mean, in simple mathematics, I can say x plus x equals to 2x. This is correct, right? Can I do the same if I say x1 plus x2? Can I say that x1 plus x2 is 2x, or 2x1 or 2x2? That is not correct. Why? Because unless x1 equals to x1, right? This cannot be considered. So if x1 does not equal to x2, we can't combine them. Why? Combination can happen only if the type matches. If they don't match with each other, 2 things cannot be compared or combined. Therefore, what do you think? Is Nama the Rupa, or is the Rupa the Nama? Can you combine, or can you compare with those 2 with each other? No, they are worlds apart. But still, there's a relentless attempt to combine the 2. As a result of this attempt, a perception is created. And that perception is referred to as vijnana. Right? Perception is created as if the name and the form, or the details and the form, were combined. But are they combined really? But this is the process. This is the end result of vijnana. Even in the purest form of the mind, this is what happens. So, at the end of the day, what is perceived? Something that does not exist in the world. Why do we say that it is something that does not exist in the world? Because name and form can never be combined. But it is perceived as if they got combined. So, but there's nothing wrong with this process, because that is the nature. What is ignorance then? Ignorance is that taking things for granted. That means the inability to see the world, see the nature in that purest form. That means inability to see the virtue of anicca, the quality of anicca. It takes things for granted. That means the knowledge is that the world is fixed. If the world is fixed, then there are fixed things to begin with. That means attachment will take place. If there is something fixed in this world, then attachment will take place. You don't like something because liking cannot be performed. It will happen beyond your control. That is why I want you to focus. That is, I want you to reflect whether the fixed things, the best versions of that you consider, whether they are actually fixed or whether those are the manifestations of your own thoughts or your own sight, sound, smell, taste and touch. Because the best versions maybe of your face, of your physique, of the clothes that you wear, the shoes, the watch, or any of your possessions, those best versions are the culmination of the sight, sound, smell, taste and touch. Depending on the view that we hold onto, it will define what the best version is. And since you were not able to see the world according to this process, which is completely cause and effect or anicca, you defined a fixed entity, a fixed unit, which is unique from everything else, which is a separated entity. So let us think about, let us take an example. I want you to think about the favorite food item that you want to fancy your world. So think about it and ponder upon whether that food is actually fixed or is it something that manifests in your mind. So let us make use of 5 minutes. And at the end of the 5 minutes, I will ask some questions. And let's make sure that we are ready with some answers. Okay? So what is the exercise? We are going to think, we are going to ponder upon, or we are going to contemplate the food item that you like the most, or maybe the gilampasa that you just had a few minutes ago. Whether it is a fixed gilampasa or I can't say it because I will be telling the answer there. Okay? Let's discuss at the end of this 5 minutes. Are we ready? Okay. So now we have contemplated on the best version of gilampasa, whatever, the best version of food that you hold on to. So let us look at how the mind works when you perceive this, when you have it, when you consume it, the food item. Now you know that the minds are formed according to this way. So let us put this aside. Let us put the defilement process aside for a moment and look at how the minds are formed. Whenever you see your favorite food item, a mind will be formed depending on the sight process, right? When the sight happens, a rupa comes and contacts with the root of the mind. And let's signify it as RR, rupa. When it contacts with the root of the mind, it will create Vedana and Sanya. Or let's say that it's Vedana and Sanya, then with the combination, at the end of the day, it will result in a Vijnana, which we refer to as Chakku Vijnana, right? That's the technical term. You don't have to worry about the technical terms. What is this? After all, that is the perception. A perception of something that can never be combined. So that is Chakku Vinyana. That is sight. In simpler terms, that is sight. Then, when you have it, when you consume your food item, when you munch on it, you can hear, you can listen to your bites practically, or when you swallow, you can hear yourself. Now, it produces some sound. Let's say, Shabda Rupa, that is sound. It also produces Sota Vijnana. Or this is a sound object, then this is the sound that you perceive. Then your favorite food item has a nice aroma. You can sense it. Then what is that? That is a smell. Let's say smell. Then it will be perceived as a smell. So on and so forth. With each and every moment, a separate mind will be formed. A separate perception will be formed. Now, look at very carefully, right? Is there any room when the Chakku Vijnana forms, or when the sight happens, is there any room for the sound? Or is there any room for the smell? Or is there any room for the taste or touch? There's no room for that. Only the sight will happen. When the sound happens, is there any room for the sight or smell, taste or touch? No, there's no other room. So similarly, in all other senses, there's no other room for any other sense except for the concerned smell or the sense. But is that the way that you perceive your food item? Just imagine, let's say it's a piece of cake that you consume. When you consume that piece of cake, do you just see it? But you can't sense it other way. You can't hear yourself, or you don't smell, you don't get the taste of it. Is that what you refer to as the piece of cake? No. You perceive everything at once. That is what makes a piece of cake. That is what makes the experience of having a piece of cake. Just imagine there's a piece of cake. You can see it perfectly. Let's say that it's on a saucer. It's served to you. But when you try to touch it, it goes within your hands. It is an intangible piece of cake. Would you like to have an intangible piece of cake? What would make you feel like? Make you feel like? You will be frightened. You will feel like a ghost because you can't touch. That is not the true experience of having a piece of cake. The true experience is when you touch, you have to touch. You should also be able to see and touch both at once. And also, you should be able to smell it, taste it, and touch it, and see it. All of this should happen at once, simultaneously. But is that the way that how the mind works? No. Then how is it possible? What should happen? Someone might say that, oh, that is true, Swaminathan. All these minds happen separately, individually. But this is a very fast process. Because of the fast nature of the mind, now the mind cannot observe the difference or because of the speed, you can't identify the rate at which the mind works. Therefore, everything is combined. Do you agree with that? Some of you might, but let's see whether that is the true explanation for this. For that kind of combination to happen, the observer should be very slow. It should be slower than the presenter. For example, when you see the blades of a fan, let's say the fan is switched off. Now you can see the blades separately. Let's say there are 3 blades of that fan. Now, do you see that those 3 blades are it appears as just one blade? Excuse me. Do you perceive it as one blade? No. You can see those 3 blades separately because it is still, it is not moving. What happens when the fan is switched on? It will start moving. And you might be able to appreciate the fact that those 3 are 3 separate blades until the rate that the light rays are captured, the rate of the eye, until the blades exceed that rate, you'll be able to appreciate the blades separately. What happens when the rate of the motion of the blades of the fan, when it exceeds the rate at which the eye captures, then you can't appreciate the difference because the presenting rate is much higher than the rate of observation. So therefore, the events are combined. Right? For this combination to happen, the rate of observation has to be slower than the rate of presentation. That is how a movie is shown to you. Right? So when you watch a movie, let's say you're playing a movie clip on your computer. So what is a movie clip? Does it have a movie or does it have frames, individual frames? What do you think? There are individual frames which will be presented to you at a certain rate which your eye will not be able to capture the rate. Let's say there's a minimum rate that your eye can capture. Let's say that is maybe 20 frames per second. When the movie clip exceeds that rate, let's say it is being presented at 25 frames per second or 30 frames per second. Now it is more than the minimum rate where the eye can capture the difference. When the eye means the sight, right? Now when it is presented at a much higher rate, now you don't appreciate the difference of 2 frames because the eye doesn't have enough time to appreciate the difference. So then, now the eye does not appreciate it as 2 different frames. It appreciates it as it is the continuation of the same frame. That is how that combination happens. What is the essential thing that should happen? The presenting rate has to be more than the observing rate. Now when it comes to mind, what is the presenting rate and what is the observing rate? Who are the presenters? The sight, sound, smell, taste and touch, those are the presenters. Now, who is the observer? The mind itself. Because the mind, so in today's discourse, the mind amalgamates everything, combines everything with the usage of memory. Right? So what goes to memory is Vedana and Sanya, or the details. The form does not go to the memory. What is memory is referred to in Pali? It's called Namagotta. Just because just the Nama goes to the memory, not the hard form. It doesn't go to the memory, only the details. So the details are noted in the memory, and thereafter these details are amalgamated or they are condensed, compressed, and it forms another form of Rupa, which we refer to as Dhamma Rupa or a thought object. Then that thought object, when that thought object comes into contact with the root of the mind, it will produce another perception, which we refer to as manovinyana. Like the chakku vinyana, manovinyana. That is an experience. So sight, sound, smell, taste and touch, then an experience of all of the above. Then what happens? The sight, sound, smell, taste and touch will be amalgamated. Those experiences will be amalgamated. So now what is the presenter? These are the 5 presenters. So there are 2 more: sight, sound, smell, taste and touch. Although I didn't write it here, those are the other presenters. Now the observance happens at the mind. As you know, these 5 presenters, what do you think about their rate? Which is going to be faster? Is it the rate of the mind or the rate of sight, sound, smell, taste and touch? Sight, sound, smell, taste and touch, they always work with a human body, right? So human body works through nervous signals. So which is going to be faster? Is your mind is faster or the nerves are faster? So when it comes to the physical form, it is much slower. That is why between 2 sight experiences, there could be millions of thoughts that could happen. So here, the observer is much faster than the presenter. Therefore, such kind of combination could never happen. I hope you understood something. But instead of that, what happens is, as I described, these memories will be combined and it will form another rupa, which we refer to as Dhamma Rupa. And when the Dhamma Rupa comes into contact with the root of the mind, it gives another perception as if all those minds happened at the same time. But did that truly happen? Can millions of minds be formed at the same moment? No, that is never the truth. But it is perceived as if that happened. But that never happened in the first place, but it is perceived as if that happened. Because perception can be created. A perception could be given rise because that perception is an effect of a cause. Although what the perception tries to convey might not be the truth, any kind of perception, even an unrealistic perception, can be formed. For example, a mirage. Have you seen a mirage? Have you tasted the water of a mirage? You might have seen the water of a mirage, or at least the sight that which looks like water. Have you got that experience? I'm sure almost everyone has seen the sight of a mirage which looks like water. Although it really looked like water, is there any amount of water? At least a drop of water? A mirage could be possible. The formation of a mirage is possible just because the air is very hot. It's heated air. That is why the light rays are bent. Because of that heat, it produced that effect of a mirage. So at a higher temperature like that, could there be any water? No, that is not possible. But doesn't it create an effect, or doesn't it create the sight that makes you feel like there's some amount of water? There's a pool of water. That is what we refer to as a mirage. Therefore, a perception can be created, but that perception need not to be true all the time. Did you understand that? Therefore, can you trust your mind? Just because you feel something, just because you perceive something, don't fall for that. It might be an illusion, like a mirage. Therefore, what do you think about the best food item? That is a reality, right? That is served on a plate. Isn't that a reality, that food item? You feel that is so real, right? But let me ask you a question. If that is a real reality, that food item, so that perception was only possible with the combination of all these 5 different senses: sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch. Okay. The piece of cake that you eat, or whatever the favorite food item that you have, is a perception at the end of the day, right? It is a perception of the mind. Now we have proved to ourselves, right? Okay. Does that perception occur before the sight or after the sight? Can the perception of the piece of cake occur before the sight happens? What do you think? No. First, the sight should happen. Why? Because this nama is required for that perception of the piece of cake to happen. Are you all with me? Okay. Now, then, what about the sound? That is also required for the perception of the piece of cake to happen. And what do you think about the smell? What should happen first? Whether the smell or the perception of a piece of cake? Perception of a piece of cake? Now the smell should happen first, because these names or this is the memory, right? This forms a piece of memory. This is required for the perception of piece of cake to happen. So these should happen first. Then the experience of a piece of cake happens. Agreed? Okay, now my question is, if you perceive a piece of cake after these 5 processes, what does the chakku vinyan or the sight, what does it has sensed? Could it have sensed or could it have seen the piece of cake? Could it have seen the piece of cake? Because the piece of cake happened at the end of all of these processes. Therefore, can the chakku vijnana see the piece of cake? But it has seen something. What might it have seen? It cannot be a piece of cake, but it must have seen something. What should it be? It should be something, but not the piece of cake. And we call it's a fraction of rupa. And you have never come into, it has never come into your experience. You have never experienced this rupa. And can you experience this? Or can you experience the sight? Just sight. No sound, no smell, no taste, no touch. Have you ever experienced just sight? You can't hear anything, you can't smell, taste, or touch anything? No, you have never experienced that. Have you ever experienced sound? Just sound, nothing else. So you have never experienced all 5 of these: sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch, all by itself. You have never experienced. What you have experienced is the aggregation of all of these effects. So that is why this is called an aggregation process. With the help of the memories, those memories will be aggregated together and it will culminate in a perception which the mind likes to interpret as a separate entity. So let me ask you, when you perceive a piece of cake, now you may be able to say that, okay, I can see the piece of cake. What do you think about that interpretation? You can see the piece of cake, or the sight fractions, the fractions of sight make you to feel like it's a piece of cake. Because this happened first, not the piece of cake, not the experience of piece of cake. Therefore, is there a sight for the piece of cake, or the sight make you feel like it's a piece of cake? Can you see? The interpretation has twisted. It's not the sight of the cake, it's the cake of the sight. It doesn't make any sense, but I hope you understand what I mean. It's not the sight of the piece of cake, it's the piece of cake that which is the effect of the sight. The sight gives rise to the piece of cake. The sound gives rise to the piece of cake. The smell, taste and touch gives rise to the piece of cake. So, my next question is there a taste for the piece of cake, or the taste makes the piece of cake? Now, what do you like? Do you like the taste or the taste of the piece of cake? Have you ever experienced just the taste? You have never experienced. Because you can't. Just as much as you have never experienced the four great elements, you have never experienced these sight, sound, smell, taste and touch, because they never come into our experience. But what you like is the amalgamation or the effect of all of these five. That is what creates an entity. Actually, nothing is an entity. It makes you feel like as it was an entity. And that is fully 100%, it is an effect, which is causally comes into manifestation. When the appropriate causes come into play, when they are aligned, that kind of perception will manifest. Likewise, a piece of cake is a manifestation. It is a perception which manifests then and there. So, what are the causes for that manifestation, for that perception of piece of cake? These are the causes. Sight, sound, smell, taste and touch. So, does a touch creates the piece of cake, or the piece of cake has a soft touch? How do you feel? Oh, this piece of cake is so soft. Is that the correct interpretation? Is the piece of cake is soft, or the touch makes an experience of piece of cake? Yes. So when you understand this, you come into realization, or you realize that piece of cake is nothing but an effect, or it is a mirage. There's no water in it. When you realize that, you don't have to do anything else. Detachment will take place. You don't have to detach. I want to detach from piece of cake. You can't do that, because it was not you who got attached to. Was it you who got attached to? No. Attachment took place because you interpreted this perception as a fixed entity. When you lose the wrong interpretation of a perception being fixed, now the mind loses its ability to attach to it. That is how the attachment can be eradicated. Because you never got attached to a piece of cake. You can't get attached to. It happens as an effect of a cause. What was the cause? Wrong knowledge. Oh, we've erased it. Wrong knowledge, ignorance. Because of ignorance, that you interpreted a perception to be fixed, but that perception was not fixed. But it is perceived as fixed. Right? Sound, smell, taste and touch, everything together, it looks or it feels as if it is fixed. Although it feels it as if it is fixed, that is not fixed. It is an effect. To summarize, right? The perception of fixedness is not fixed. You perceive it as fixed. You perceive everything as fixed. Is it wrong? Is it wrong to perceive as fixed? What do I ask? I mean, if I were to rephrase my question, not because it is wrong. It is not causally approved. That means does it not have appropriate causes for the mind to perceive it as fixed? The fixedness can be perceived. That means, for example, the mirage. You could perceive a mirage, right? Although you could perceive a mirage, the water in the mirage is not the truth. You could perceive a piece of cake, most definitely. When it is served on a plate, when a piece of cake is served on a plate, you can definitely taste it, you can have it, you can consume it. But is it a piece of cake or a bunch of minds which twist your perception, makes you feel that it is a fixed piece of cake? The perception of fixedness is not fixed. Don't fall for that trap. This is the kind of deep contemplation that we always have to be in. Unless we are aware of this process, attachment will happen. There are no exceptions. That is why we have to be vigilant. This is how we can salvage the Buddha not being offered to the demon, by being aware. Therefore, you eradicate, or you, just by being aware of the process, now you make a full stop to the ignorance. Therefore, the defilement process cannot happen. Unless you be aware of the ignorance, you can't eradicate, or you can't make stop the defilement process. So, once the demon appears, now it is too late. You have to take an early action. When the perception is wrongly interpreted, then you have to correct the interpretation through your wisdom. How can you do that? If there is no you, how can you do that? That is why we need association. And remember, our Guru Thero said, you need someone to guide you, as well as you need someone to give you a helping hand. That is why there are noble companions in this world. Therefore, if you associate, if the precious human minds that rises and passes away in each and every moment, that is why they need to be surrounded with noble companions. Therefore, try your best to get the association of the noble friends while it is still available. So, that's all the time that we have for today. So, let us transfer all the merits that we have gathered from today morning until this far to all sentient beings in all worlds. So let us take a moment to transfer all the merits that we have acquired today by making offerings to the infinite virtues of the Noble Triple Gem, by listening to Dhamma, by contemplating on that, and by making various other meritorious deeds. First and foremost, let us remind ourselves how incredibly fortunate we are to be in receipt of the Lord Buddha's teachings. And with immense gratitude, let us transfer these merits to the bhikkhus, bhikkhunis, upasakas and upasakas, who since time immemorial have protected and preserved the sublime teachings of the Lord Buddha and passed it to through the generations of noble lineage in the form of Sripitaka, which is thankfully available to us to study, understand and comprehend the Dhamma. Let us also transfer these merits to all members of the Mahasangha present throughout the world, including the chief prelates of all of the chapters, who have dedicated their lives to the practice of the path and have committed themselves to the betterment of all sentient beings. Let us not forget Among them are the monks and nuns resident in your local temples and nunneries, who have always been by your side through thick and thin, come rain or shine. Let's also transfer these merits to our Guru Swami Nansa and all other resident monks in our monastery, as well as the Anagarikas and Anagarikas attached to the monastery. Let's also transfer these merits and express our gratitude towards all the people who make great efforts to the dissemination of the Lord Buddha's teaching, be that by translating these sermons, sharing them out with others, and inviting others to join them. Let's also transfer these merits to our devotees, friends of the monastery, who for the sake of merit continue to sustain the Mahasangha. This includes everyone from those of you who have contributed to the construction of the monastery, as well as those who provide the Mahasangha with shelter, arms, robes, and medicine, and to those who have passed on their know-how and extended their well-wishes. Let's also transfer these merits to our mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters, husbands and wives, sons and daughters, grandparents, uncles and aunts, cousins, nephews and nieces, friends and acquaintances, employees and employees, and all others who have helped us, supported us, and assisted us in any way, shape, or form. By the power of these merits, may they be healed of any physical and mental ailments. May they overcome any obstacles to their spiritual progress. May they abstain from unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let's also take a moment to transfer these merits to all gods and deities, primarily the Sakadeva and all other numerous gods and deities who always keep an eye over us. And may through the power of these merits, may they prosper in divine power and wisdom. May they abstain from unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Please also take a moment to transfer these merits to all our ancestors who have predeceased us, who helped us in every way, shape, or form, in every way they could. And let us also transfer these merits to all members of the armed forces, including the police force, who sacrificed their lives to protect the peace and harmony of our nation. May all those who lost their lives at war, be they friend or foe, rejoice in the merits that we do today. Let's also transfer these merits to all those who lost their lives in natural calamities such as tsunamis, earthquakes, landslides, and pandemics. Let's also transfer these merits to each and every one of us, thus reminding ourselves that they have been our friends and family to us in this infinite long journey of samsara. By the power of these merits, may, if any of them have been born in the woeful plains, may they redeem themselves from the woeful plains and be born in the blissful plains. May they abstain from unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And finally, let us all remind ourselves, by the power and blessing of all the merits that we have done today, we be able to witness the advent of many hundreds and thousands of Arihants on this blessed land. And may through the power and blessing of all the merits that we have done today, you and I and everyone who supported this program to make success, be an Arhatun Vanse or Arhat Menin Vanse in this blessed life itself and in this era of Supreme Buddha itself. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. May the blessings of the Noble Triple Gem be with you all. Now you will be blessed with the blessing of the Mahasangha. Raga ginnen midetva, dvesha ginnen midetva, moha ginnen midetva, Nibbana parama sukhain Sukhita taravetva, Nibbana parama sukhain Sukhita taravetva, Mamada siyalu loka siyalu satvayo, Nibbana parama sukhain Sukhita taravetva, Nibbana parama sukhain Sukhita taravetva, Nibbana parama sukhain Sukhita taravetva, Raga gini niveva, Dvesha gini niveva, මෝහගිනි නිවේවා නිවන් සැප ලැබේවා නිවන් සැප ලැබේවා නිවන් සැප ලැබේවා තුනුරුවන්ගේ සූවිසි අනන්ත මහා ගුණ වලින් සියලු ලෝක සියලු සත්වයෝ නිබ්බාන පරම සුඛයෙන් සුඛිතතර වෙත්වා සාදු සාදු සාදු